Well, hello, and welcome into another edition of the Pack a Day podcast here on YouTube. My name is Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Today, I'm going to be going over 5 potential under the radar free agent signings that Green Bay could potentially attack this offseason, including a former first team All Pro. So, how could it be a under the radar signing and a first team All Pro? Well, that, my friends, is called a tease. You will have to wait until the end of the episode to get my 5th and final name. This is going to be the most clickbait thing that I think I've ever done in my life, and you're going to be super disappointed. So spoiler warning on that. But let's start off with number 1 on my list, and that is cornerback Sidney Jones. And before I even get to the names, I actually want to start here. I know I gave one name already, but I want to start by saying these, for the most part, there's one name on this list that maybe I'm cheating on a little bit and shouldn't be on this list, but most of these are going to be players that should be able to be signed for relatively cheap, at least maybe undervalued, that Green Bay can get value. And these are not going to be names that I don't think are going to be breaking the bank. They're going to be potential buy low with some, low risk, high reward type signings. So that's my goal here is as maybe free agency plugs along and all the top players get signed, these are maybe some players that could go under the radar that Green Bay could try to pick up and hopefully improve their roster. So let's start with Sidney Jones, right? He started his career in Philadelphia last season, played for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's 6 feet, 181, was a former second-round pick in Philadelphia back in 2017. He will only be 25 years old in May. And I think anytime that you're looking for these kind of, whether it's a high price free agent, mid-tier, low tier, anytime that you can find a player that had, high end second round value, third round value, is still, 25 years old or younger and has shown some flashes and there's some potential there. Those are the type of players that you want to be able to sign. If you can get them on a cheap deal, maybe, you get some really cheap and expensive quality years out of them at ages 26, 27, 8, or in this case, 25, 26, 27, while they're still in the prime of their career. So Sidney Jones definitely matches that. He was a former 4.47 40 type guy, plenty of speed. In his career so far, he's only actually played 946 snaps. If you remember coming out, had the injury coming out of college, it really affected him as he started with his career with Philadelphia, never got off the ground, but he's shown some flashes as of late with Jacksonville. So I think that's what you're kind of banking on, is those flashes in Jacksonville are a precursor to what's to come going forward. There's some really good news here with Sidney Jones. Last year, he was targeted 35 times as a corner, only 18 completions in those 35 attempts. He broke up 7 passes and picked off 2 more. So he had some high-level success with being targeted and again, deflecting some passes, picking some off, and only allowing about half of the targets to be completed. That's really, really good. However, there's some bad news as well. On those 18 catches, he gave up 392 yards for a 21.8 yard average and 3 touchdowns. Now, it should be noted here that the Jacksonville Jaguars secondary was mostly a nightmare. Josh Jones, you remember him. Josh Jones, former, second round safety for the Packers, was one of their key safeties last year. They were just overall a nightmare. And Sidney Jones was placed in some positions that he probably should not have been placed in just overall last season. So what you're hoping is that with Jair Alexander at one corner, maybe you pick up a slot corner in the draft, a couple really good safeties in Amos and Savage behind him, that some of those explosive plays come down because you've got especially better safety play behind him, and maybe you don't leave him on an island quite as often. And even last year, CJ Henderson was there, but they just didn't have overall good secondary play. So, he got some, disadvantageous matchups as well. I think coming in and not having to be the guy and, potentially not even being a starter, potentially, right? You could easily bring him in as like a number 4 corner and have him be more of a depth piece if he goes low enough. So I think there's some advantages to bringing him in. You really want to make sure that he cuts down on those explosive plays. Obviously, you can't allow those, but his overall coverage skills went up significantly last season to what we saw over his 3 prior seasons. And what you want to see is, again, young player, ascending, cheap deal, showed signs. That's the type of player that you want to take a maybe low risk, high reward signing on. I see some of that with Sidney Jones, and you always like to see them coming off the best season of his career. So that's my reasoning on Sidney Jones. Let's stick at the cornerback position. My second one here is Jordan Lewis, the former corner for the Dallas Cowboys, 5'10", 195 with a 4.5, 440 coming out of Michigan. Former third-round pick, picked 92nd overall. Again, only turns 26 in August. This isn't a 31, 32-year-old player. This is still somebody that's in the prime of their career, and again, has shown flashes. He's got over 2,300 snaps in the NFL at cornerback at this point, so plenty of tape out there and plenty of experience to come in and compete for a spot. He can play outside, he can play a little inside, he can play some special teams, so you like that versatility. He's always been a solid cover guy up until last season. The wheels fell off for whatever reason. What you're hoping for here, kind of the reverse of Sidney Jones, is that, he had 3 good seasons. Even his rookie season was good. And then for some reason, you're hoping that maybe it was an injury. Maybe he got put in some disadvantageous situations, that something went wrong in Dallas. Like literally everything went wrong defensively for Dallas a season ago. They had a bad defensive coordinator. They had bad players. Just the defense completely and unequivocally fell apart. So you're hoping he comes in to a better team in Green Bay. They like their Michigan guys as well. So seems to fit there. One of the issues, he's had 14 penalties over 4 seasons. I think if I remember correctly, he had 8 of them just a season ago, which is really, really high. He's given up a 97.8 passer rating throughout his career. So that's an issue, but he's been a strong tackler. He's played the run well. And at some point in his career, he's basically flashed everything. He's shown that he can, again, defend the run. He's shown he can play slot outside. He's shown that he can be a good coverage guy. He just hasn't done all of it in like the same season and all of it consistently. So again, you're hoping you can bring him in, put him in a better situation, and really coach the rest of it out of it to be able to put all of those pieces together in one season and really put together one of his career years. So again, he's coming off a poor year, so you're hoping you can buy low off of that, and then he's going to bounce back to what he was in his 3 previous seasons. So just another name there as Green Bay looks to fill out the depth chart that's really, really not great at the moment at that cornerback position. Both Sidney Jones and Jordan Lewis, former top 100 picks, that have had some flashes, shown some upside, haven't put it all together. You're hoping maybe you can get them into Green Bay and put that full body of work together. My number 3 entry here should need no introduction whatsoever. His name is John Weeks. Who the hell is John Weeks, you might ask? He is a long snapper extraordinaire. He has never missed a snap or, botched a snap in his entire career. He's 35 years old. I don't care about anything else. I do not care. I don't care that he's old. I don't care that the long snappers even decline, probably getting down the field to tackle. Just give the punter and the kicker somebody who can consistently snap the ball, and let Mason Crosby finish out his career with an accurate long snapper that's going to get the holder the ball consistently every single time. Period. End of story. It is under the radar for sure. Would it be somebody that helps? Absolutely. Have you noticed Hunter Bradley? Yes. And that's an issue if you're a long snapper. You never want to be noticed. For the last decade plus, John Weeks has not been noticed as the long snapper for the Texans. You probably didn't even know who he is. That's a great sign. Sign me up for some John Weeks as a future member of the Green Bay Packers, even at age 35. And hell, give Aaron Rodgers maybe somebody over the age of 35 who, maybe in the locker room he can relate with a little bit more. Maybe he and Mason Crosby and John Weeks can, start some sort of bridge club together or something. But I'm all in on the John Weeks bandwagon here. Number 4, this is my name that probably isn't fair to be on this list because I'm fairly certain he's going to get a pretty decent sized deal, but I still think he's under the radar enough that I'm going to at least try to cheat and put him on this list. And that's Tyus Bowser, the sort of outside linebacker. I think outside linebacker is probably the right position here, but he does a little bit of everything for the Baltimore Ravens. First of all, how do you not want the name Tyus Bowser on your team? Period. End of story. Just one of the all-time great NFL draft names coming out of, I think it was Houston. Love Tyus Bowser coming out. He hasn't totally lived up to the expectations, but I still think you're starting to see flashes out of him as well. Former second-round pick, 6'3", 242. Again, only turns 26 in May of this season, so he's still very, very young. He's only had 10.5 sacks in the last 4 seasons. So as you kind of look at that, he hasn't put up huge pressure numbers. But one of the things we saw with Preston Smith these past couple seasons, he's been dropping back in coverage a lot. Za'Darius can't be a guy that drops in coverage. You don't want Rashawn Gary dropping in coverage. If in fact you do move on from Preston Smith, which is why you'd be looking for a player like Tyus Bowser, Bowser is very capable at dropping back in coverage. He had 155 snaps in coverage last season alone, only allowed allowed 13 completions for 104 yards, had 3 interceptions and 2 pass breakups. So very, very comfortable dropping off into space. He's a very versatile piece. He can stop the run, has had some success rushing the passer, and then of course being able to drop into space as well. Again, can do a little bit of everything. He kind of like Jordan Lewis. He's solid at everything. He's not great at anything. I do think he's above average in coverage for the position, but overall, I just think he's a really nice piece that can kind of be a versatile chess piece. Is overrated, but chess piece in a way for Joe Barry in this defense that they want to be very multiple with. Tyus Bowser's a very multiple player. And again, I think he's a perfect player to pair with Rashawn Gary and Zadarius Smith on the outside if, in fact, Preston Smith is gone. And then let's talk very quickly about those pressures. He had 33 pressures last year, but only in 284 pass rush attempts. So not a ton of pass rush attempts, still got 33 pressures. For comparison's sake, Preston Smith had 4 less pressures on 446 pass rush attempts. So Bowser, 33 on 284, Preston Smith, 29 on 446. So Bowser actually may be a better pass rusher, at least than what Preston Smith was last year, can easily drop into coverage much better, and was better against the run too. So again, he's probably going to go for more money than Green Bay can afford. We'll see. He's not like a big name free agent, but those type of young players that have versatility usually get some significant contracts. We'll see. But if he doesn't, definitely a player that I would jump all over if I were Green Bay. And then finally, last but not least, former first team All-Pro under the radar free agent signing. I'm going with Jamal Agnew, the former kick returner, punt returner, wide receiver, cornerback for the Detroit Lions. Unrestricted free agent. He was a former first team All-Pro as a returner in his rookie season. He has 4 career punt returns for touchdowns, 1 career kick return for a touchdown. He has a career 11.6 yard average on punt returns, which is really, really good. And last year he averaged 28 yards per kick return, which again, very, very nice average there. Green Bay is dying to have somebody that's an explosive returner again, and having Jamal Agnew be that guy would probably be worth it in and of itself. But they also started using him as more of a gadget type player on offense. And again, he's just starting to come into his own. He just turned 26 years old. He started as a corner in the league, just made this transition to offense over the course of the past couple of seasons. So he's still kind of learning on the fly. He had 13 catches for 89 yards, 6 rushes for 33 yards, can be used on those jet sweeps and motion, some of the stuff. Basically, a more explosive Tyler Ervin is what we're kind of looking at here. And even on his only 19 touches last year, 7 of those touches amounted to first down. So again, he showed some playmaking ability as a returner, can be used on offense. And maybe more importantly, he was used 45% he played 45% of his team's special team snaps a season ago. Only 4 Packers played that many this past season. So he would be a core special teams player, even on some of the coverage units as well. So what you're getting here is a player who came into the league as a corner, has played wide receiver in kind of that slot gadget position, has played some running back. He's also been a kick returner, punt returner, and is a core special teams player. That's the exact type of guy that you want on the back end of your roster. And then, oh, by the way, has some explosiveness with the ball in his hands, whether you're getting it to him on special teams or even on a couple drawn up plays on offense. And Matt LaFleur is going to be as creative as anyone, if not more creative than anyone on offense, and trying to figure out ways to get players like that the football in space and use their skills to the best of their ability. So I just think if you're trying to activate a 46th, 47th player on game day, how about somebody that can be an emergency cornerback, to be your primary kick returner, primary punt returner, do some of the stuff that Tyler Ervin did in the slot last season, and maybe even play, some running back from time to time as well. There's a lot of value in that type of player. I don't think he's going to break the bank because he's basically just a special teams player. But if Green Bay wants to really start taking special teams seriously, signing guys like John Weeks as a consistent long snapper, signing guys like Jamal Agnew who can do a little bit of everything on special teams. Mac Hollins could be another person that I put on this list who is more of like a back end wide receiver who's a core special teams player, is a really good run blocking wide receiver. There's a bonus one for you. Dylan Cole would be another one who is a core special teams player for the Texans. Tore his ACL a couple years as he was kind of coming on and starting to really develop a role in their defense. Wasn't the same last year. Usually it takes a year to get back from a torn ACL. He would be another player that I think could be a core special teamer for Green Bay. Was a athletic freak coming out of college. I think he might have had like a 10.0 RAS or RAS score from Kent Lee Platty at the time. So these are the type of players that if you really want to be serious about fixing your special teams, you really want to take a strong look at adding those type of players to your roster, and just solidifying it, because it is still a core, component of the game, and one that Green Bay's just been systematically bad at over the course of way too long of a period of time now. That does it for me. I hope the former first team All-Pro wasn't too much of a dud for you, but I do think these are 5 under-the-radar players, and I gave you a couple bonus ones as well that I think Green Bay could look to add as this free agency period goes along. Remember, it's probably unlikely that they're going to do too much, maybe not be able to sign, a couple premium players. Brian Gutekunst did say that they have the ability to sign, one big name free agent if they wanted to. I still think you're going to probably be looking at bargains more often than not. So hopefully these could be a couple bargains that Green Bay could look at as they try to improve their roster and get over the hump, and hopefully into and winning a Super Bowl this upcoming season. Thanks for joining me. Make sure to check out Andrew and Kyle on today's audio version of the podcast. I'll be right back here tomorrow as always. Until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.